how to ruin your baitcaster in 8 easy steps, and more importantly, how to avoid it. Bank anglers, this one is brutal. Baitcasters sit higher than spinning reels, but they still get laid down on docks and shorelines and kayak decks and truck beds all the time. And when you do that, they pick up sand and dirt, and that debris can work its way into the reel. And here's why it matters. Most sand is made largely of quartz or silica. On the Mohs hardness scale, quartz ranks around 6 or 7. Now compare that to the common reel materials. Aluminum alloys, roughly 2.5 to 3. Now many of the stainless bearing steels, typically 5 to 6, and depending on the alloy and heat treatment. And what that means is that sand is often hard or harder than many of the reel components. And when silica particles get inside of a reel, they act like an abrasive grit inside that precision machine. The parts most vulnerable on the baitcasters include your worm gears, your level wind systems, and your spool bearings. And once those abrasive particles enter the reel, every cast and every retrieve can continue wearing those parts down. And what you have is reel manufacturers and those service centers consistently listing sand and debris contamination as one of the most common causes of premature servicing of these guys, because inside of a precision gear system, hard particles always win. Step number 2 is locking down your drag, right? If your drag is locked down like you're fighting a submarine, you're putting more load into your reel's gear train. You got to understand that baitcaster drag systems are designed to slip under heavy load to protect key internal components like the main drive gear, your pinion gear, your drive shaft, and your anti-reverse system. And when the drag cannot slip, more of that sudden force transfers directly into the gear train instead of being absorbed by the drag stack. Now that doesn't mean a tight drag instantly destroys a reel, but repeated shock loading increases stress on the gears and internal components over time. What you also find is that most reel manufacturers also recommend backing off the drag during storage. Now, keeping the drag tightened long term can compress those drag washers and reduce their smoothness and consistency. Now, it won't ruin your reel overnight, but repeated heavy loading and long-term compression can absolutely accelerate wear and reduce drag performance. Step number 3 is crank while your drag slips. Now, when a fish is pulling drag and you crank hard anyway, you're mostly generating extra friction and unnecessary load inside of the reel, right? Here's what's happening mechanically. Drag washers are designed to slip and absorb energy through friction, and friction always creates heat, right? And that heat gradually contributes to drag washer wear, lubricant breakdown in the drag stack, and reduced long-term drag smoothness. At the same time, cranking aggressively under heavy load increases stress on the gear train, on the anti-reverse system, on the drive shaft. Now, this won't instantly damage your reel in one fight, but repeated heavy cranking while the drag is slipping can accelerate long-term wear. And here's the thing, if your drag is slipping heavily, right, you're usually not gaining much line by cranking harder anyways, right? So let that fish run, gain line when it stops pulling, and your drag system and your reel will last longer. All right, step number 4, over oil or use the wrong lubricant. This one surprises a lot of people. More oil is not better. Baitcaster spool bearings can spin thousands of RPMs during a cast, so lubrication has to be extremely light and precise. Too much oil can increase fluid resistance and slow that spool speed. It could also trap debris and contamination inside of the bearing. And also using the right oil matters as well. And this is where a lot of anglers will push back on me. I've used 3-in-1 oil for years and it works great. And I believe you, but just because something works doesn't mean it's working the way it was designed to work, right? 3-in-1 oil is a general purpose household oil designed for light duty tools and hinges, not high speed precision bearings. You gotta understand that fishing reel lubricants, right? They're designed and formulated for high speed rotation, right? So low viscosity. They're corrosion resistant in wet environments, and also for contamination control and stability over time. Now, your reel may still run with the wrong oil, but performance and long-term wear can be affected. So please know, the lubricants that you put inside of your reel, they're engineered for speed, load, and precision. Step number 5, another great way to ruin your baitcaster reel is to transport it without really protecting it, right? This type of damage really happens slowly. When rods bounce around in a truck or trailers or kayaks, these reels are exposed to repeated vibration and small impacts over time. And what you'll find is that these reel manufacturers routinely advise avoiding drops and shock and rough handling, because fishing reels are precision gear systems with really tight tolerances, right? Over long periods, repeated vibration and impacts can contribute to a variety of things, right? Gradual gear wear, bent or stressed handles, frame or alignment issues, and reduced smoothness and performance. You usually won't notice it right away, but repeated impacts can add up over time. All right, number 6, another really great way to ruin your baitcaster reel is store it wet, right? Moisture trapped inside of a reel is a silent killer. Corrosion science shows visible corrosion can begin forming within 24 to 48 hours when metal stays damp, especially in humid environments. And salt water, well, as you can imagine, makes this dramatically worse. You gotta understand that salt residue is hygroscopic, right? Meaning that it pulls moisture from the air even after the reel looks dry. So corrosion can continue inside of the reel while it's still sitting in your garage. Now here's the part that most anglers don't realize, right? Most baitcasters, they don't rust like an old truck, but they absolutely corrode. Now reels are built from mixed metals. You got aluminum frames, you got brass gears, stainless steel bearings and shafts, and steel screws and springs. And each of these metals corrode differently. Aluminum doesn't rust, it oxidizes and it pits. Right? Brass gears don't rust, they tarnish and roughen, which affects that gear smoothness. And stainless bearings are only corrosion resistant, not corrosion proof. So moisture and salt can cause bearing pitting and noise, rough gear mesh, right? Seize screws and fasteners. And the first thing that you usually will notice is your reel suddenly isn't smooth anymore, or your bearings start whining. You won't see corrosion happening, you usually feel the performance just disappear. 7th way, a really great way to ruin your reel, is never to clean your baitcaster, right? Baitcasters can trap contamination inside. You get gear housings, brake systems, level wind assemblies, and over time, normal fishing exposure to dust and sand and water and salt can work its way into these areas. Reel manufacturers and service centers consistently note that contamination is a major cause of gear and bearing wear. Even that microscopic debris can act as an abrasive grit inside of these precision gear systems. Most reels do not fail from catching fish. They fail from contamination that was allowed to build up over time. And number 8, a really great way to ruin your baitcaster is to never lubricate it, right? This might be the biggest one of all. I hear anglers brag all the time, I haven't lubricated my reel in 10, 15, or 20 years and it still feels great. It doesn't feel great. It just feels familiar to you. Right? Fishing reels are precision machines with metal on metal contact, high speed bearings, and moving gear systems. Lubrication is what separates those metal surfaces and reduces friction and wear. And without proper lubrication, over time, those bearings are going to lose efficiency and wear faster. You get that gear mesh is going to become rougher, that casting performance gradually declines, and your retrieve smoothness will slowly disappear. Right? This doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, which is why anglers often don't notice the change. Even reels with sealed bearings are not maintenance free, only maintenance reduced. The lubricants that we use, they're going to break down, right? They're going to migrate and they're going to get contaminated with use. So if you neglect lubrication long enough, your reel will absolutely tell you. Now, if this video hit a little bit close to home, no judgment, that's exactly why I made the next video, how to lubricate your bait casting reel step by step. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.